Go ahead.
Sun black office reflect from suntan. Iran resident negotiation meeting Western promised yesterday. After 6 months, Ham
Tie A to us.
hired us under pressure to focus swing back. It is deported unpaid.
Disputed nuclear program.
Deported space program to with request from keeping sometime the two-day meeting the first sign the cleaning
The election
of in participants.
Iran's relatively moderate
President who run on the
platform
to international
isolation, just like frozen water, ice, isolation, 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 isolate, isolation, isolated, isolation, isolation. 6-month hiatus, scaling back, crippling sanctions, international isolation, relatively moderate, on a platform. Anytime you are involved with politics, there will always be a platform. To ease international sanctions. If you have a platform, you would also have a plank. But that, I'll save that for a little later. Arms scale back offers relief from sanctions. Iran resumed negotiations with Western powers yesterday. Go ahead.
Scale back offers relief from sanctions. Iran
resumed negotiations
with the Western powers yesterday after a 6-month under pressure to propose scaling back is disputed.
It's disputed nuclear
program to win crippling sections the two-day meeting, the first since the election of Iran relatively
moderate
platform to each international isolation. Isolation.
Yeah. Very good. I couldn't have done better myself. That was outstanding. Go ahead.
Scale back offers relief from sanctions. Iran resumed the negotiations with Western powers yesterday. After a 6-month hiatus under pressure to propose scaling back its deputed nuclear program to win relief from crippling sanctions. The two-day meeting, the first since the election of Iran's relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation.
Right, very good. Iran resumed negotiations with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus under pressure to propose scaling back its disputed nuclear program to win relief from crippling sanctions. The 2-day meeting, the first since the election of Iran's relatively moderate president, who ran on a platform to ease international isolation. Go ahead.
Scale back offers relief from sanctions. Ireland resumed the negotiations with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus under pressure to propose scaling back in disputed nuclear program to win relief from crippling sanctions. The 2-day meeting, the first since the election of Ireland's relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation.
Right, very good. Crippling sanctions, the 2-day meeting, the first since the election of Iran's relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation. Iran resumed negotiations with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus. Go ahead, Mr. Rick.
Scale back offer relief from sanctions. Ireland resolved negotiation with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus under pressure to propose scaling back its disputed nuclear program to win relief from crippling sanctions.
Right.
The 2-day meeting, the first since the election of Ireland relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation.
Exactly. International isolation. Go ahead.
Scale back offers relief from sanctions. Iran resumed negotiations with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus under pressure to propose scaling back is the
disputed
unclear nuclear program to relieve from crippling sanctions. The two-day meeting, the first since the election of Ireland's relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation.
Right. Relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation. Iran resumed negotiations with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus. Under pressure to propose scaling back its disputed nuclear program to win relief from crippling sanctions. Go ahead.
Scale back offer relief from sanctions. Iran resumed negotiations with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus, under pressure to propose scaling back its disputed nuclear program to win relief from crippling sanctions. The two-day meeting, the first since the election of Iran relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation.
Yeah, very good. That's exactly right. Arms scale back offers relief from sanctions. Wow. Go ahead. Up to you.
Iran resumed arms scale back offers relief from sanctions. Iran resumed negotiations with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus under pressure to propose scaling back its disputed nuclear program to be relieved from crippling sanctions. The two-day meeting, the first since the election of Iran's relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation.
Right, very good. Iran resumed negotiations with Western powers yesterday after a 6-month hiatus, under pressure to propose scaling back its disputed nuclear program to win relief from crippling sanctions. Two-day meeting, the first since the election of Iran's relatively moderate president who ran on a platform to ease international isolation. Arms scale back, this is the headline of the article. Arms scale back offers relief from sanctions. Arms scale back. What does that mean? Arms scale back. Well, right. Arms or weapons, the nuclear program, whatever, however you want to call it, atomic weapons, nuclear weapons, the arms scale back.
To reduce the weapon.
Right, arms scale back. You have a scale, and if you put some things on it, say you're buying some apples, you put 1 apple, boom, 2 apples, boom, boom, boom. Oh, too many apples. Oh, better scale back. Take an apple off, scale goes back. So when you reduce it, the scale goes back. When you increase, that scale goes up. So what they're talking about here is a scale back, a reduction, taking apples off the scale, so to speak. Whereas there were too many, now we've got to reduce. So take one, take two, the scale goes back. Reduction offers relief from sanctions. The sanctions will be eased. It will be easier, relief in sight for Iran if the scale back occurs. Things will get easier. The sanctions, the no international banking, restrictions on oil production and distribution would be eased. Pressure taken off Iran. They started again. The negotiations resumed. They had stopped and now they are starting. They have resumed the negotiations, discussions and talks, which are underway or were underway in Geneva the other day with the Western powers, France, Russia, England, Western powers. Yesterday, after 6 months away, a hiatus, a break, a departure from what we were doing, we took a 6-month hiatus from the program. I left and I went to San Francisco for 6 months on a sabbatical, traveling and doing some study in San Francisco. I took a 6-month hiatus from my work in Bangkok, a 6-month break, so to speak. Under pressure to propose scaling back, reducing the nuclear program that is much discussed and argued about, which is much discussed and argued about or disputed between the Western powers and Iran. Iran says we're doing this, the Western powers say no, you're doing that. There's an argument, there's a dispute. The nuclear program is argued about between the West and Iran. It is disputed, argued, not clear. Pressure to propose, to suggest reducing its nuclear program that is in argument at the present time in Geneva. Disputed. There is a dispute. There's an argument between the two sides. To win relief from crippling sanctions, sanctions that cause Iran great economic problems. They use the word crippling instead of being able to proceed forward. They're crippled by the sanctions, barely able to survive, crippled. The 2-day meeting, the hyphen brings the 2 and the day together. You could say the 2 days of meetings, but no, it's a 2-day meeting. The first since the election, the Iranian presidential election, where someone was chosen by vote to be the president, and election of Iran's relatively moderate. Moderate is in the middle. You have a liberal side, a moderate in the middle, and a conservative side. And they're saying he's relatively, in relation to the other politicians in Iran, many of whom are right-wing, hardline conservative on issues, this fellow, compared to them, in relation to those hardline, right-wing conservative politicians, this guy is moderate, in the middle, not so rough on dealing with the West. He's pretty easygoing in that sense. Who ran on a platform, basically a platform. I gotta get a pens at work. I can't seem to get it. Must be time to leave. Running out of ink. A platform would be something like this. And it's a political term where you would stand up on a platform to give a speech. In other words, I would be giving an address to a large group of people. I would be up on a platform where everybody could see me.
Stage. Stage.
You could say a stage in a way, yeah. But the term here, on a platform, on a standing, basically is what he stands for. It's a term that's used in politics a lot. What is his platform? In other words, what does he think about this? What does he think about this issue? What does he think about Iran? What does he think about China? What does he think about the American debt? What does he think? All these issues, he's on a platform. And he says, what is his platform? Well, he believes we should do this with China, we should do this with Iran, we should not do this with Afghanistan. He has all these different, and what they would call planks. A platform is made of wood. The old, we're talking 150 years ago, made of wood, strips of wood. So each plank in the platform would be an issue. Boom, 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 boom. And the platform is what he is running, what he believes. And in this case, they're saying that the Iranian president, who's relatively moderate, is running on a program. He's running on a platform. It's not really a platform, but they use the word. It's his policies. What are his policies? What is his program? Well, he has one plank in his program, and that is to ease, reduce, lighten up international isolation. What is isolation?
So climate.
Stay alone.
Climate alone.
Stay alone.
Right. To be isolated
Yeah.
is to be alone, away from everything else. So in this case, he wants to, remember they talked about his smile campaign, his charming offense and all that, be charming. It's all to relieve Iran's isolation from the rest of the world. In other words, you have Iran here, and you have the rest of the world over here. Iran is isolated. No way to do anything, they're off by themselves. The platform, the policy of this Iranian president, the relatively moderate, newly elected Iranian president, his program is to ease this international isolation. Isolate, to be off by yourself in some far and distant place. Scale back, reduction. Think of a scale and taking things off the scale, it would fall back. Resume, start it again. 6-month break, hiatus. Pressure to suggest scale reducing its nuclear program, which is in dispute. It is argued about as to what it really is. To win relief from sanctions that cripple, that really almost destroy Iran's economic situation in the world. And the 2-day meeting, the first since the election of the relatively moderate. When you compare him to the conservative group in Iran, he's pretty easygoing, not so strict, not so tough. Ran on a program, platform, to ease the isolation. Iran being alone in its dealings, has no dealings basically with the world, it's isolated. Isolated. I was isolated on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Didn't see a ship for 6 months. Very isolated. Any questions about this?
Arms.
Weapons. Weapons. Now, what they're talking about here is the nuclear weapons. They're not talking about rifles and pistols and you know, small weapons. The big deal here is the nuclear program. And so the scale back, the reduction of the arms, the nuclear weapons, offers relief from sanctions. So if you reduce, they're saying basically, if Iran reduces its weapons, the sanctions will be eased, relief. Relief is just a step away. Relief. Easing. Less pressure. No problem.
Platform is kind of stage, but it's of politician.
What's this?
platform.
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 Yeah, it's like a stage. It would be,
Bus station.
and you would, if you were the guest speaker, you would go up and you'd stand on the platform, maybe there'd be a microphone here, and you'd give a speech. But it's a term, it really has nothing to do with a platform in the sense of the wood and what have you. It's an expression, a comparison. It's the way things were done in the United States, let's say 200 years ago, when there were no microphones, there were no ways to address thousands of people. You would step up onto a platform, a wooden platform, and address the crowd. Speak to the crowd and say, this is what I propose. When I am elected, this is what will happen, this is what will happen, this is what will happen. This is my platform. And it's just a term that they use to discuss what is his program. Because all those years ago, candidates for different offices would get up on the platform and say, this is what I propose to happen. This is what I believe we should be doing. And then they just said, oh, well, one way to describe it is, what's his platform? When he stands up there, what does he say? And this is what he says, and they're talking about this. His platform, one piece of wood of which was international isolation and the removal of that in Iran's case, reducing international isolation. Instead of being out here and the rest of the world here, they wanted, obviously, to bring Iran into the bigger picture, playing with the rest of the world.
Teacher, about the platform in the sport game, have a competition. Who is the winner before you receive the reward? You can stand on the platform.
Well, right. In the Olympics, they would get up on a platform to receive the medals. If the winner of the race would go up to the platform and get a gold medal or whatever. But the idea is that it's an elevated position. A raised platform is a raised flooring, so to speak, just up so that everybody can see what's going on. If it was a case of no platform, I'd be down here trying to address the crowd, nobody could see me. So you get up on the platform so everybody can see. And it became to be known as the policies of the candidate, just the term that they use. Well, what's his platform? In other words, what does he believe? Well, when he gets up on a platform in front of a group, he tells you what his policies are. And that became the term that people would use to describe what are the policies of this particular candidate. What is his platform? Not really a platform, but it's an expression that they use, and obviously, whoever wrote this article knows that you just say who ran on a platform to ease international isolation. He didn't give you a 20-minute explanation of what platform means. He assumed everybody knows. Oh, what's his platform? Oh, he ran on a platform to reduce international isolation. That was his platform.
Also stand the podium. Platform.
The podium would be on the platform. The podium would be on the platform. The podium would be yeah, he would go up the steps to the platform, step in front of the podium, maybe he's got his notes here, the microphone, and begin to talk.
Teacher, and is come from the word easy. Is.
Oh.
Come from the word easy.
Yes.
Is.
Relief.
Is.
Ease, yeah, to ease, to lighten up.
Lighten up.
To make things easier, to make things easy, or to ease to ease international isolation. In other words, to make Iran closer to the world. Not way out here, but closer. Any other question?
Teacher, I don't also understand about the persons. persons.
This here?
Yes.
The first sentence.
To describe the persons as headline.
Headline.
The persons after the 6 month hiatus.
You mean here?
Yes, until sanctions.
What don't you understand?
I don't understand about this sentence. What does it mean?
What
Describe
don't you understand?
after a 6 month hiatus. Listens until sanctions. Until gripping sanctions.
Well, what they're saying here is that Iran started again. They started up. They renewed, they resumed talks with the United States, Britain, Russia, France, whatever, yesterday, after a 6-month break.